Europe's countryside, and farms in particular, can make major contributions to help member states tackle potential causes of climate change. And results from a transnational LIFE project provide useful tools for helping agriculture to reduce its carbon footprint. The project results are especially relevant to Europe's rural development programs, which prioritize support for climate action projects that can measure the actual difference their funds make at individual farm level. The LIFE project's tools can do this by quantifying the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that can be reduced on each farm.
The Climate Change project is financed in the framework of the LIFE program and is developed throughout 4 different countries of the European Union, mainly Spain, Germany, France and Italy. And 5 different partners are working together to establish key measures to fight against climate change through sustainable farming practices.
The Agri-Climate Change tool can help farmers to assess their greenhouse gas emission as well as the carbon store in the soil. So what we can say with the Agri-Climate Change tool is that we can assess the crop management on a farm, for example, no-till, reduced-till or full tillage. You can assess if it improves or not the carbon store in the soil, for example, as well as the greenhouse gas emission from the use of fossil energies and also the fertilizers that are applied on the soil.
It's a very extensive tool that can be simplified, but has to be really understood. We don't want to compare different agriculture systems or even different farmers of the same system. We want to say to farmers, you are in this position, we are going to give you an action plan, so you are going to decrease your emissions, you are going to improve your energetic balance. So it has to be understood as a tool to implement action plans in the farm scale and not to compare or to certify anything in the European Union.
One of the most important findings in this project has been the identification of measures that could be helpful to reduce energy consumption and GHG emissions at the farm scale. We've created a manual, but the aim of the manual is not exactly to inform the farmers or to train them in the mitigation techniques on the farm scale, but rather to identify and quantify the measures that can really contribute to decrease the energy consumption and the GHG emissions.
In the project we found out that there are different types of measures for the farmers that can be distinguished. 3 groups. The one group are measures that can be or should be directly implemented by the farmers because they are also not only benefit for climate, but they have direct financial benefits for the farmers, so they're economically viable. Very quickly there's a return of investment, so that's one group that could be even imposed on the farmers to say, okay, you should really do that, or you have to implement those measures. There are other measures that require more a rethinking of the farmers. So those measures, they might be like cost neutral, but there's a strong benefit for reduction of GHG emissions and energy. So they also should be implemented, but it needs a different type of approach in order to get this implemented. So a lot more awareness raising, a lot more information and training of the farmers, of their associations and so on. And then there's the third type of actions which are normally quite cost intensive and where there's no return of investment directly to the farmer as the system is set up now. So we have to think of ways how to finance those measures if we as a society want to have them implemented. So we cannot just impose them on the farmers and say you have to do this. So if we as a society want to have those measures, we have to be willing to pay for them in one way or the other, either via subsidies or directly via the consumer.
We are not talking necessarily about very difficult measures, but some measures that are already known But what we really need is to include them into farming schemes at the national and regional levels. And of course, the aim was not only to identify them, but to suggest them to our authorities. When you have to suggest something to a politician or to a decision maker, finally, what you need is to give very accurate data. I mean, it makes no sense to get there and say, okay, no tillage is very interesting. So you have to get there and say, no tillage is very interesting. The potential area to apply this technique is that much. The average saving of fuel for the farmer is that much. And the average emission reduced is that much. So what we do is go to, for example, our regional administration and say, okay, we know that these measures can really contribute to the conservation of soil, to the reduction of energy consumption and GHG emissions. What we want is to offer you all the data we have, so the real numbers, and demonstrate that this can be scaled up. So this can be a benefit for the environment, for the climate, but also a benefit for the farmer. When you work with a farmer and you explain, okay, this is the potential measures we could implement in your farm, you have to work very hard to make him or her understand what you are talking about. And you will have to meet also his or her interest. I mean, maybe talking about energy saving, money saving, something related at the end with the GHG reduction. Otherwise, they won't be interesting. I would say that farmers could be very interested in implementing these measures for reducing GHG or preserving soils, but we have to begin to speak the language.
So if a farmer wants to implement some conservation techniques on his farm, for example, no tillage or reduced tillage, and we can show him all the benefits concerning energy consumption, for example, fuel, and show him how much money he can save at the end of the year. From our experiences with the farmers in the project, what we have seen is that farmers are already interested at the end when looking at the results, for example, to take care about the climate issues and energetic issues on their farm.
We are sharing it now in the third year. We get a much better knowledge about our farm, and we realized some measures. We actually built a new fermenter for our biogas plant. This brings us savings in the input, about 12% per month, and this is very urgent for our GHG balance. And we also have savings in our energy consumption. We get saving in the diesel and the oil fuel. We replaced 2 old machines, a tractor and a wheel loader. And we also get savings in the electrical consumption. We fit new heat pumps where they are more efficient, and so we could save the electrical consumption. And so at all I get back some money from our energy company last year.
So to my mind, I think that the agri-climate change tool can be used on a larger scale because we had the chance to work with 120 farmers in 4 main agricultural countries in Europe, but only in small territories. And I think we could use the same methodology at a regional, national or European level.
Networking, communication and peer learning were noted by the LIFE team as being absolutely vital success factors for effective implementation and replication of the project's climate action tools.
What we found is that if we really want to implement these measures at large scale, so this way to meet the GHG reduction commitments at the European level, we will have to seriously involve farmers because they are responsible for implementing these measures. So we really need a bigger effort explaining them what we are talking about and training them in these techniques?
I think farm advisories services and farm advisors are actually crucial for the know-how transfer of all our findings, to reach out to more farmers. We made good experiences in Germany as we cooperated directly with farm advisories during the project already. We trained them also in using ag. They learned how to do it.
I think that the most positive thing and the best experience is when farmers from one country go to another country and they get surprised of the things others are doing. So I think that the example is the best method for learning. We have to interconnect farmers throughout the European Union, and they have to feel that they are in the same boat as we are. And I think it's the best message. Is the quickest way to teach.
So in my opinion, the role of networking is actually really important. It's underestimated very often. It's very time consuming, so that's probably the reason why it's not happening in the extent that it should be. But it's very important in between the farmers, as especially the farmers are a group of people who can be quite resistant from outside advisors. You know, if there's always somebody coming knowing things better than the farmers themselves. But if they can get their own view, see what other farmers do, their people, so to say, and they see it's working, it's really running, it's more valuable for them.